Hey my crafty friends, it's May here with Craft Cottage Market, and today I'm going to be creating the cover for the Whispers in May junk journal. And so I wanted to share with you the process of creating this tall skinny journal. Now to create this you'll be needing some chipboard, and I use a very thick chipboard. You'll be needing some cardstock. I decided to use a craft cardstock that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. I'll be using these two distress ink. This is the tea dye and the Tim Holtz ground espresso. I'll also be using Fabri-Tac along with Barely Art. You'll need your scoreboard, your paper trimmer, a bone folder, a ruler, a pencil to mark with as well, because oftentimes we need to make little notes on our papers. And I have come up with just a little digital for this specific project. So these are the new add-ons for the Whispers in May. You can choose whichever you're going to work with. These are just the covers. And then these are the spines for the covers. And then there's a little ledger, and again I had to put it in there, you know, Whispers in May. So that is the new add-on for this collection. It's available on my Ko-fi. I will link it below. So with no further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so we're going now with the tea. Give it more of a worn out look. Like it's been weathered down, gone through, you know, everything that you could possibly think of. Another tip that you can do is you can take some embossing powder and give it a nice little crackled effect where you apply your embossing powder. It's a clear, and you take it to the refrigerator, let it freeze up, and then kind of crack it, and it gives a nice weathered look as well. So that's a little bit of an idea or tip that you can do to give it a weathered look, because I'm trying to give it like a leather feel, and that's why I'm going in with the tea dye. So I did the espresso on the edges, and now I'm just going in with the tea dye a little bit deeper in to give it a nice little weathered look. Okay, just a little tip there. And then we'll do that on all of it. Okay. Another thing you can do is get your ink pads. If you have like a script, stamp, you can stamp it up and give it more of that textured distress look as well with your inks and your stamps. Okay. So we're left with that. Okay. So now we're going to grab our cover, and I am going to probably stitch this around and just give it another textured look. Okay, so I have stitched around my edges, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the front and the spine of my album. You don't have to do this step. It's okay, so I have gone ahead and stitched around my edges. It's not the most perfect stitching because I'm not the perfect seamstress or anything like that, but I'm okay with the way it looks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these down, and then we'll work on the inside. And for this, I want to make sure that around that stitch mark we put plenty of glue, like so. kind of keep them in place, okay? And again, like I said, I am not very good at sewing. I am horrible when it comes to straight stitches, so mine are going to be wonky. And I'm not worried about it because actually it gives it character. So we're going to go like so. Looks like that. And because our album is exactly 11 inches, and our paper is also 11 inches, it's going to fit top and bottom perfectly well. And then we're gonna have like an eighth of an inch around the two sides, or not around, but around the front. Sorry. Okay, so these are the signature pages that I'm going to be using. This is my collection that I've designed, Whispers in May. As you can see, I've started to distress the edges of these. So these are going to be fairly easy to work with because all I'm going to do is fold it in half and start sewing. So for this, we'll need our awl, we'll need a needle and thread, and if you have any coffee dyed paper, go ahead and pull that out. This is one that I purchased years ago from a fellow crafter. So I'm probably going to use some of that because that's what I had available in my stash. I haven't coffee dyed in such a long while, so I think I need to do that. But these are the pages that I've gone ahead and decided to do. Of course, my ink decided to kind of go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but that's okay. We're going to work with it because we're going to be adding so much to it. So here it is. I'm going to fold these. These are going to be so easy because, again, like I said, we're going to fold them in half, sew in our stitches, and attach it to the little hinge that we created and glue it on to our journal. And then we can just go ahead and decorate it. So let's get to it. I'm going to start folding and start stacking these up, and then we'll be back, okay? Actually, what I forgot to say is what I'm going to do is, since these journal pages I printed the 10 tall, skinny junk journal pages with a border because I wanted the stitch work that I've put in to kind of pop out. I'm going to go ahead and ink all my little signature pages with my tea dye Tim Holtz distress ink all the way around, front and back, on all my pages, actually, to include the main bodies. Every single page I am going to distress with my inks, both my tea dye and my ground espresso, and then we'll be back and start putting these together. Alrighty, so we're back, and I've gone ahead and cut my chipboard. You're going to need a very thick chipboard, and if you don't have a thick chipboard, go ahead and stack it up. You're going to need two pieces that measures 4.5 inches by 11 inch, two pieces, and one piece that measures 2 inches by 11 inches. And then for your cardstock, you're going to need two pieces that measures 6.5 inches by 12 inches. We're scoring it at 1 inch and at 5.5 inch on the portrait side on both of these pieces, okay? Then you're going to need one piece that measures 6 inches by 12 inches, and you're going to score it at 2 inch and at 4 inch. And then for our signature pages, I've come up with this little template, and you're going to need a piece that measures 4 inch by 11 inch. We're going to do this together, so when we get to that part of the tutorial, we'll do that together with the scoring. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring out the piece that has the 6 by 12, and we're going to take our bone folder and we're going to score towards the little bump and we're going to burnish that in really well. Now I use a 80-pound cardstock. You want something that is sturdy. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and grab our piece of chipboard, and we're going to leave. Now this is the tricky part because we know that we need at least a 1/2 inch top and bottom. So we're just going to kind of eyeball that the best we can. And I'm going to go ahead and use my fabric tack just for placement. I've come to understand that it's best to use like barely art for some things and fabric tack for others. On this particular craft cardstock, as I was saying last night when I was live and playing around on how I was going to come up with this concept, is that it doesn't work very well with this, oops, excuse me, this craft cardstock. It kind of left a little bit of a stain. So I'm going to be very gentle as much as I can with using it, because I didn't like the way it was coming out, and I didn't want to glue very well. So, all right. Now I'm just going to carefully fold that over, just like so. And notice I did not score it. We could have scored it at 1/2 inch top and bottom, but I did not want to do that because this part here, it's a little tricky. So we're just going to work it the best we can. Kind of take your bone folder and go in. Okay. Now flip it over, and what we're going to do is we're going to open up those little flaps. Oops, excuse me. And we're going to take our bone folder and kind of burnish it really close to the edge of that chipboard, okay? Kind of making a little indent there. So you see how it's kind of indented now there, as opposed to this one. So we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Just like that. You want to condition your cardstock. You want it to work for us, not us work it, okay? So then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to glue these two little flaps down, and for that I will use my Barely Art just because I found that it's better for this. Get really close to the edge of that chipboard. Get really close. Okay. Over. And I'm going to speed up on this part here. Okay, so I have glued down the two little flaps on each end, okay, and we're going to flip it over again, and we're going to go ahead and work again, getting that bone folder as close as we can to that edge, okay, there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab our scissors, and we're going to carefully miter from this edge to that point right there, okay? So basically just like that. That, okay? There we go, all four corners. Now, The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the covers. So now let's go ahead and grab the two pieces that are 6.5 by 12 inches, and over where the bump is, we're going to fold these over and burnish it with our bone folder. Do that on both. And we're going to do the same thing, with the only exception we will glue down all 4 corners. Okay, with the spine we only glue the top and the bottom, that little 1/2 inch mark. Okay, so now we're going to grab our 4.5 by 11 inch piece of chipboard, and we're just going to put a good generous amount of glue, and we're going to glue both on each piece. Okay, and I'm doing it good generous amount. And I'm just going to center that right in, kind of eyeball it, making sure we have at least a 1/2 inch top and bottom. Press down. We're going to do this for both. I'm going to flip it over, burnish it. Now I have a mitering tool, and I got this from Amazon. If you're interested in getting one like this, it's just really helpful to kind of get nice clean edges. Now let me grab my X-Acto knife. You don't have to use this. You can definitely use your scissors and just kind of guesstimate. Put it right to the lip, and we've done that before without these little nice tools that we have available to us now. Okay, so we're going to do this on all 2, sorry, on the cover, and I'm just going to bring that over, burnish it in really nicely. Work that one that we did not score, because we needed to kind of get a little close to that edge, because of course obviously we don't have a 13-inch paper. Would have been nice, but we don't. Okay, so on these little 4 corners here, we're going to kind of tuck those in inwards like so. Okay, just tuck them inwards like that. Okay, sorry, my hands are a little dry. Working with a lot of cleaning products lately, so making my hands kind of go dry. Okay, kind of work that in. And then I'm just going to go use my Barely Art, and I'm going to go really close to the lip, right on the edge of that chipboard, and again on top like that. So we're going to do this with both pieces, and I typically go top, then bottom, then the sides. That way it's kind of uniformed like that. And see, when you tuck those little pieces in, you got a nice little clean edge there. We're going to do the same thing with the bottom. Hoping once we have the coffee shop set up, I can just focus on this and just let the girls run that on their own. You guys know how that is. Okay. Got that nice and clean. Now we're going to do the sides. with the sides, I'm going to go ahead and bring it over, and I want to burnish that in. Just kind of get it tucked in there. So bring the edge of your bone folder along that edge just to get a nice crisp fold down. See that? Look at the difference of that side as opposed to this side. Nice and clean, right? Do the same thing on the opposite side. And then flip it over and let's glue that. And we're going to do that for the other piece as well. Okay, as you can see, I'm wrapping it up here with my second cover. I did forget to mention that you're going to need something to pierce some holes for your signature pages, whether you have an awl. You'll also need a needle and thread, whether it's wax or twine, whatever you have for your signature pages. We'll be using the collection, as I mentioned before, Whispers in May, which it can be purchased on my Ko-fi. I will link it below, so make sure you grab it. It has over 60 pages of the 8.5, between the 8.5 by 11 and the ephemeras, and then there's some add-ons for the cover if you choose to use the covers that I will be using, and I will show you those here in a bit. So then we're left with two of these pieces, just like so, to include our spine. Now you're wondering, what are we going to do next? So very easy. We're going to grab each piece of the front and the back cover, and we're going to align it perfectly, just like that, right on top, like so. Okay, like that. We're going to leave like 1/8 of an inch gusset, and for that I'm going to go ahead and put my Fabri-Tac that allows me to move and shift things around. I'm getting close to that gusset, but not too close, because I know that this will spread, and we don't want that. Okay, but we do want it to make sure it stays put wherever we put it. Now you can use score tape if you choose to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it top and bottom, making sure I have that little 1/8 of an inch gusset. This allows you to open this journal, this tall skinny journal, and it'll lay flat instead of having all that, where it's not laying flat. And we have a little gusset just like that. Okay, and when you have it placed down, hold it in, burnish it in nicely, pressing down firmly. Just like that. And my table's a little wobbly, and I apologize if you hear, I heard it the other day on the video, and I was like, oh gosh, that's horrible, but not much I can do right now. Let's see, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, perfect. So now we've glued them, we've distressed them with ink. I use ground espresso both in and out, as you can see. And then we're going to grab the piece that measures 4 by 11, and we're going to get our scoreboard, and we're going to make some score marks. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, let me cover my ink pad here. The first thing we're going to score is at 1 inch. Okay, and we're going to score it at 3 inches. On the portrait side, we're going to turn it this way, and we're going to score it just between those two score lines at 1 inch. So, I mean, if you can go close to it, but I just go right between them and make the score line. Okay? Just between the two, I have the one, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing at 10 inches. Right, like so. And then we're going to come over here at 5 inch. So it's at 1 inch, 5.5, sorry, 1 inch, 5.5 inch, and at 10 inch. So I always say, watch the video first and then work on your project. So on the landscape side, we're going to go in between the two prior score lines, and we're going to score it at 1 inch, at 5.5 inch, and then at 10 inches, okay? Then we're going to go back to our portrait side, and we're going to between this score line here and the 10-inch score line, okay, we're going to make several score lines. And we're going to start at 1.5 inch, and you can actually go down 1.5 inch all the way down to that 10-inch mark, and then go over to 2 inch, down to the 10-inch mark, and then at 2.5 inch. Okay, so basically this is what you're left. You have 1 inch, 3 inch, then you're going to turn it at the landscape side. You're going to score it at 1 inch, 5.5 inch, and at 10 inch. But we're scoring it between those lines, okay? And then we're going to turn it again to the portrait side, and we're going to score it at 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 2.5 inch, okay? And then you see these intercepting lines, and that's where you're going to pierce your hole with your awl, okay? Between those intercepting lines. On top, at the 5 inch, 5.5 inch, and at the 10 inch. So at the 1 inch, you're going to make that little piercing. At the 5.5 inch, sorry, at the 5.5 inch, you're going to make your piercing, and then at the 10 inch, okay? So I'm going to go right up here at the 1 inch, and intercepting, and then at the 5.5 inch, and just kind of make little markings, because that's where our awl is going to go in and make our piercing, okay? Move this on out of the way and grab my piercing tool. Okay, now with my awl, I'm going to go in to right where those intercepting marks are, and I'm just going to make a little piercing, and that's where we're going to insert our needle to attach our signature pages, okay? I'm going to go down to the 5.5 inch marking, intercepting line, and make another piercing there. And then at 10 inch. Okay, just like that. Okay, and you can make your hole just as big as you want, as small as you want. It's up to you. Now I do a hidden one just because if you're not good at making those little holes and it's kind of little wonky, one's higher than the other, it's not going to be as noticeable if you do it this way. Worst thing in the world is to have a journal that has crooked stitches, okay? So we want to make sure that they're perfectly aligned. You see in the back, you can see the holes a lot better. That is where we're going to take our needle and thread and run our signatures right through these piercings, okay? Now, over here where you see the little bump, we're going to fold that over because that's going to be attached to our journal, tall skinny journal. I'm going to go ahead and burnish that 1 inch that way, and I'm going to do the same thing with the opposite edge. Okay, just like that. Okay, those are the only two that we're going to burnish because that will go in to our spine once we attach our signature pages, just like so, between that 2 inch. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and miter these 4 corners, and I'm going to go ahead and just use my scissors just for this. Just right up to that. Just a little sliver, okay? Not something big, not a huge chunk. Just right where it intersects right there, we're going to snip it off just to angle it slightly, okay? Just like that. Okay, see, I didn't take too much off each corner, just a little piece, okay? So then the next thing that we have to do is decide how we're going to compose our pages. I am going to go ahead and distress this a bit because I see it needs a little bit of our distressing. I'm using ground espresso. I'll fold it back this way because I know that is where, once I attach my signature pages, that's going to go and be exposed. And that's where you're going to grab that beautiful collection, Whispers in May, and you're going to gather every little piece you're going to adhere or attach to your signature page. And just get it all together, gathered up, whether you're going to use tea dye paper or coffee dye paper, that's up to you. I'm not probably for this, I'm not sure yet, but we'll do the call it the signature. We'll work on it possibly in a live so that you can see that part of this video tutorial. I will attach the front cover, and I'm going to show you those pages here in a minute that I've designed as an add-on for this collection. I think it'll go beautiful with it, okay? So I've gone ahead and distressed my signature page hidden mechanism. Excuse me. I've gone ahead. Gosh, I can't talk. I've gone ahead and distressed my signature page attachment, and that will lay like so. See that? 2 inch, 2 inch. Line it up perfectly, just like that. So it's just like that. But we're not gluing this because first we have to attach our signature pages, and once our signature pages are attached, then we'll glue it in. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on putting a beautiful cover on here. And for that, I have designed these pages for you guys to use, and I just got to decide which one I want. I don't know which one. So I kind of like this one, but then I like that one. So many choices. I think, me personally, I'm going to go with this one, so that way I can kind of decorate a little bit more. And then we have a coordinating spine and then more over here, okay? So I'm going to go with this one. Okay, so we're going to cut this at about 4 1/4. It should be the center point, okay? About 4 1/4 and trim it, and that should be perfectly evened, okay? 4 1/4, and we'll leave it like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and find the coordinating spine, and I'm going to cut that as well, and that should be, it should be 2 inches, okay? Because our spine is about 2 inches, and we're just going to go right to that. Maybe a little bit smaller, I think. That's a tad bit smaller, but that's okay because we want a little bit of a of exposure of the craft paper, okay? So we got those pieces cut off. Now I'm going to go ahead and distress these. I'm going to go with ground espresso, but I think I might go on top with a little bit of the tea dye just to also give it a little bit of that as well. I'm going to go around all edges, and I'm going to put this on the outside. And in the process, you can be deciding what are you going to use for your closure. I might be using a belt. I don't know what you guys are going to be using. I'm just telling you what I think I'm going to be using. And I kind of like that, or I don't know. It used to be that Joann's had my favorite trim or fabric that I would make beautiful little closures with it, because it was some kind of a material that kind of meshy. It was just so pretty when I tied it up into a bow. Can't speak. All right, so let's just stress this one.